When I found that yellow pad in his desk, I didn't panic. Not until I saw the words asset division. Custody clause. Timeline. My husband, the man I washed clothes for and shared prayers with, was planning to leave me and take everything. Welcome in, friend. Thank you for sitting with me today. Before I share what happened, take a moment and subscribe. It helps keep stories like this alive for folks who might feel alone in theirs. And if you're listening from a place you love, let us know in the comments. I'd love to know what city you call home. Now come in. Sit with me a while. I need to tell you how everything I trusted almost slipped through my hands. My name is Auntie Freeman Bradley. I'm 54 years old, and I live just outside Charlotte, North Carolina, in a 3-bedroom ranch-style home we bought 25 years ago, back when love still felt loud. I work from home these days, freelance editing, consulting nonprofits when I can. I've always been more of a behind-the-scenes kind of soul, working with my hands, trying to sharpen quiet things into good stories. My husband, Marlon Bradley, works for a mid-level finance company downtown. Polished, precise, always known for walking into a room like he owned his name. He wears the same cologne his grandfather wore, something musky and deep, like oak woods after a storm. We've been married 28 years, together even longer. Long enough to know each other's rhythms, and short enough to believe naively that anniversaries are promises. We were that couple. People said so all the time. She's cooking, he's cleaning. Y'all just too cute. Y'all balance each other, that's what that is. And truth be told, I thought so too. Marlon wasn't flashy, no rose petals or grand gestures, but he noticed things. Fresh tires on my car before winter hit. Lemongrass tea when he saw my headache setting in. He wasn't loud with his love, but it was steady, reliable. And for a long time, that was enough for me. I still remember the last Sunday we felt like us, after nearly 3 decades of Sundays. We had brunch at the Grits Nest, a little place on Beatty's Ford Road with sweet potato hash and soft jazz playing through hidden speakers. He teased me for asking the waitress for extra honey butter. I rolled my eyes when he asked the server to box up his second biscuit before he was halfway through the first. We walked back to the car slow, my arm looped around his, light drizzle tapping against our windbreakers like a tiny lullaby. "Let's go the long way home," he said. So we did. I didn't know that would be the last time his hand felt like it knew how to hold mine. 3 weeks later, something changed. Just enough for me to notice, but not call it what it was. Marlon got distant. Not angry. Quieter. Smiled when I looked at him, but his eyes had already let go. I brushed it off at first. Everyone hits rough patches, right? The markets were unpredictable. I figured maybe it was just work. But his phone became a ghost I could feel haunting between us. Late calls, quick scrolls, turning the screen away when I passed behind him. His laptop clicked shut too fast, like it was hiding something soft and slimy underneath. One night I asked with a laugh, "What, you Secret Service now?" He chuckled. "Nah, it's just all this cybersecurity junk. Can't be too careful." I let that answer sit, but it didn't settle inside me right. Then came the day I was looking for a pen in his desk drawer. Simple, innocent. We keep stationery stashed for bills and taxes. I just needed a pen that worked. Instead, I pulled out a yellow legal pad with the corner flipped, like it had been slid shut in a hurry. And Lord, I'll never forget what it said. House equals leverage? Rollover 401k. Iona's income low. Review prenup? Custody clause. Dog equals weekends? I froze. We didn't have children. But the line about our dog, Kofi, hit me harder than I can explain. He was our baby. We raised him together from a rescue kennel off Tryon. Now he was a bullet on an escape plan? I folded the pad quietly and walked to the bedroom, sat on the edge of our mattress covered in the quilt my great-aunt stitched for our wedding. That's when the world shifted. I stared out the window for 10, 20 minutes, couldn't even remember breathing. I told myself it wasn't what it looked like. Maybe it was something for one of his clients. Maybe he was drafting a just-in-case emergency plan. Marlon was a planner, always had been. But review prenup? Custody clause? That wasn't a plan. That was a playbook. and I wasn't supposed to see it. The next week he turned sweet in a way that tasted like syrup left out too long. He brought home dinner twice, asked me if I'd had a chance to rest, said my skin had been glowing lately. And when I asked, "What about that road trip to Savannah we talked about?" he just said, "Let's hold off a bit. Things might shift later, not sure yet." Shift, a word that got heavier every time he used it. After all that, it was a text message that dropped the bottom out of me. He left his phone on the bed while he grabbed a towel from the bathroom. I wasn't looking, truly I wasn't, but a notification popped up. Just a preview, just enough, from someone named Clark. Met the lawyer. She won't see it coming. You ever feel the blood fall from your face like gravity just snatched it down? I sat on that bed knowing two things at once. One, the love I thought I had was gone. And two, I was not about to walk into this blind. I've lived through sorrow, disappointment, grief. But this was cold. I wasn't crying in that moment. I was calculating, same as him. This wasn't heartbreak. This was betrayal disguised as strategy. And I wouldn't play the fool. When a woman senses war being waged in secret, she doesn't beg for peace. She prepares her defense. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in the dark, eyes stuck to the ceiling fan spinning above me like a question. Who is this man beside me, and how long has he been gone? Marlon breathed slow and deep, 3 pillows propped under that proud head like nothing was wrong. But I knew now. God forgive me, but I didn't see my husband anymore. I saw a man planning his exit while I was still cooking for him and filling his prescriptions. The next morning, while he was out for his so-called run, I called my cousin Zariah Carmichael, who lives in Durham. Zariah's quiet, raised Baptist like me, and smart as a whip. She's a paralegal, and don't let her soft-spoken tone fool you. When Zariah's got your back, it's locked in. I didn't tell her everything right away. I just said, I found something. And it doesn't feel right. She didn't even pause. Send me pictures, now. Then delete 'em. Start acting normal. I sent her 3. The legal pad. The Clark message I captured when it popped up. And my last will draft, unsigned, still on our shared laptop desktop, that I had barely looked at since Mama Ruby passed. She called me back in 4 minutes. "You don't have time to panic, baby," she said softly. "He's moving. That means you have to move faster." That same day, I opened a private bank account under my maiden name, Ayanna Freeman. I was intentional, didn't use our joint bank, didn't scan mail at home. Walked my papers 2 blocks to a UPS drop instead of printing them in our house. I didn't even breathe differently around him. I quietly transferred the $280,000 I had accumulated from my freelance work over the years, plus $280,000 I had accumulated from my freelance work over the years, plus $12,000 from my mama's stocks that I'd finally cashed out last fall. Zariah had coached me. Keep the amount under $10,000 at a time. Space it out. Banks start triggering flags if you pull too much at once. So I moved it over days, kept it small, quiet, clean. I felt like a woman climbing out of a burning house, barefoot, silent, and determined not to wake the man holding the matches. Our house was bought with both our names, but Aunt Dell had gifted us the down payment all those years ago, a generous $42,000 that felt like a fortune back then. I never forgot that moment. She'd held my hand and said, "Your name need to be on that deed, baby girl, not just his." That woman's wisdom saved me. I got the paperwork, verified my share, and with Zariah's help, I started moving my portion of home equity into a revocable living trust, created under just me, with a clause that activated full control if divorce proceedings were initiated without joint agreement. All legal, all clean, all documented. Next came my personal things, things I didn't want to end up in a box at his lawyer's office. My Nana's ring, a box of journals dating back 20 years, the deed to my Toyota Camry, not fancy, but mine. I packed them into 2 shoe boxes and took them to Aunt Savannah's house. Her porch is always open and always guarded by a half-woke pit bull named Tater. She didn't ask questions. She just looked in my eyes and said, "How soon?" "Soon," I said. "Too soon." That next weekend, Marlon came into the kitchen acting like we hadn't been sleeping heart to back with a wall of hurt between us. He kissed my forehead like we hadn't crossed a line. "You think we should plan a trip, maybe just you and me? I've been off my game lately. You've been so patient with me." My stomach nodded, because that was the same man who'd planned to leave me 3 weeks ago. "Sure," I said. "Let's talk about it Monday." Monday, after my trust paperwork cleared. He sat on that couch every evening that week with a calm I couldn't understand, researching business retreats, watching TV with one hand, scrolling his phone with the other, Googling what sounded like real estate law. He wasn't second-guessing it anymore. He thought he'd already won. And me? I smiled and baked him a sweet potato pie like old times, because now I was the one holding the strings. Sunday night. He closed the laptop, took a deep breath like preparing for a eulogy, turned to me on the couch and said, "Yaya, I think we need some space. I've been doing a lot of thinking and we're not working." I tilted my head, pretending. "You think so?" "I know this is sudden. I've already spoken to someone about mediation. We don't have to make this messy." I let him lay it out, line after line, strategy wrapped in calm. "You've been wonderful. I just feel like I lost myself in all this." I smiled, a soft smile, a knowing smile. "All right then," I said. "If this is how you feel, let's do it right." He looked shocked. I didn't cry, didn't scream, didn't fall apart. But baby, I was beyond falling. I was rising. The next morning, I met with Ms. Donisha Clark, my attorney downtown, a sister who wore locks pulled into a silk head wrap and heels that clicked like gospel. I handed her the documents. "He's going to file soon," I said. "He thinks it'll all be his." She studied everything, paused at the stock transfers, smiled wide. "Well," she said, "he's walked into a house he no longer owns." He did it like it was nothing. Tuesday morning. I was sipping tea and checking emails when the doorbell rang. A man in a gray polo held out a manila envelope with my name printed bold and impersonal. "Ayanna Freeman Bradley, served." I nodded, closed the door softly behind me. I didn't cry. I went to the kitchen counter, opened the envelope, and laid each page flat, like a table setting. That's when I saw exactly how far he was willing to go. He wasn't just leaving. He was trying to empty me. The documents claimed half the house, half of all retirement assets, 50-50 rights to our dog Kofi, spousal support because he delayed career growth for my comfort. Then came the kicker. He structured it like he was doing me a favor by opting for collaborative divorce instead of court, as if this wasn't already war in a pressed white envelope. That night, he came home acting like rain hadn't just fallen through the roof. "I hope you understand this isn't personal. It's just how these things go sometimes." My eyes stayed on the stove. I was stirring the collards real slow. "Marlon," I said, "you sent a man to hand me freedom in an envelope. You sure it ain't personal?" He blinked like I'd slapped him. I didn't raise my voice, didn't throw a thing. I just pulled down the cornbread skillet and hummed Mahalia Jackson under my breath. 2 weeks later, we were sitting on opposite sides of a glossy wooden table in a quiet office suite down on South Tryon. He came in with a lawyer from one of those mid-size hyper-aggressive firms. Black suit, silver tie, laptop open like he already owned the resolution. My attorney, Ms. Donisha Clark, came in smooth. Her locks wrapped high, heels low, calm. Marlon's lawyer started without waiting. Mr. Bradley is seeking an equitable split of all marital assets, including the property, retirement contributions, stock benefits, and due to disparities in income, spousal compensation will reflect. Donisha raised her hand soft-like. Before we discuss terms, she said, sliding a folder across the table, we have a few clarifying documents. Marlon squinted at the folder. His lawyer opened it while still monologuing, but the words started to dry up. Page 1, bank transactions, asset transactions. Page 2, trust agreement, pre-notarized, filed, stamped. Page 3, property protection form with Zariah Carmichael's signature. His lawyer leaned closer. Excuse me, when were these documents processed? 3 weeks before your client filed, Donisha said, folding her hands with that kind of church lady calm that means you just stepped into your own trap. My client's financial holdings were legally separated into an irrevocable trust prior to any divorce filing. That's not possible, his lawyer. Marlon sat up straighter, his mouth opening, then closing. She didn't tell me she was doing anything, he mumbled like a child caught in a lie. I looked at him, just looked. No rage, no retaliation. Just the face of a woman who had nothing left to give him, because I already took it back. There's no legal grounds to contest the trust, Donisha said. Assets moved voluntarily, outside the marital estate, with paper trails. Her 40% home equity is no longer accessible. Then what's left? His lawyer asked. Whatever's in his name alone. You could feel the heat shift in that room. You know the moment when someone realizes they not the one holding the cards? That was his moment, and I sat still, just like he had the last few months, letting him feel all that silence. As we left the office, he followed me out to the elevator, asked the receptionist if he could have a minute. We stepped to the side near the vending machine. Yeah, how long have you been planning this? He asked. I looked him dead in the face. Long enough. He shook his head like I'd betrayed him, like I had broken the vows, not the one planning escapes in the dark. I thought you'd be devastated, he said. That's why I filed soft. I figured we could talk after emotions. You didn't come to talk, I whispered. You came to take. He stood silent, lips pressed tight. I walked away without another word. I didn't owe him my sadness. That week, it started. Voicemails at night. 20 seconds at first, then minutes long, wobbling between sweet and pitiful. I just needed time. I thought we were stronger than this. Next message. But you're cruel for what you did, Ayanna. Cold. I saved some of them, not out of spite, but in case I ever forgot why I did what I had to do. He was unraveling, quietly, slowly, just how he tried to unravel me. After that second week, the silence got loud. Marlon had stopped texting, but not talking. I started hearing things, from friends, from folks we both knew. A sister I used to work with at Crossroads emailed me out the blue. Girl, is everything okay? Marlon told Dennis you had a breakdown and filed something reckless. I blinked at the message. He wasn't just licking his wounds. He was rewriting history and painting himself as the victim. He wasn't just trying to take my money. Now he was trying to take my name. The stories changed depending on who heard them. To some folks, I locked him out of the accounts one night without telling him why. To others, I had forged some legal thing my cousin helped me draft. Then there was the pitiful version, my least favorite. She iced me out emotionally. Did it all behind my back. That wasn't the woman I married. I didn't respond, didn't jump on social media, didn't hit reply all. Because when you're grounded in truth, you don't chase down noise. 2 Sundays later, I was walking out of New Hope Baptist and Sister Gibbons pulled me aside. Older lady, sharp eyes. Wears the same blue fascinator every Easter. Ayana, she said soft, I don't believe a thing that boy's sayin'. 'Cause messy people always need audience, but quiet folks, y'all usually live in something real. I stared at her for a second too long. She kissed me on the cheek and walked off. That's when I knew the truth was starting to come back around. The first real break came from someone I never expected. Corey, one of our mutual friends from Marlon's job, reached out in the most casual way. Yo, you got a minute? I called. He skipped the pleasantries. Ayana, I ain't gonna put myself in y'all business, but you might want to know your husband ain't been acting like no victim over here. Turns out, Marlon had been leaving breadcrumbs for months, lunches with someone named Clark, who wasn't with the firm but always around. Whispery phone calls, a standing calendar entry that read just exit blueprint. 2 days after that call, I got a text from Tasha, a woman who used to come to our backyard cookouts. She sent me 3 screenshots, texts between Marlon and Clark. I tipped my phone over on the counter, hand over my mouth. One message read, once this separation terms get filed, I'll be in control of the property. She don't know how this works. She's too trusting. Clark replied, just like we said, push her first, then reframe it. What chilled me was what came next. Marlon, already got the narrative started. Folks'll believe it the way I frame it. She's an overthinker. I'll make it seem like she cracked. I stood there in my kitchen, heart quiet, but blood roaring in my ears. That hurt deeper than any paperwork. Not just the plan, but the presumption, the belief that I was fragile, weak, that I wouldn't see him. That's when the betrayal truly set in. He never loved me enough to stay, and never respected me enough to believe I'd leave with my dignity. I almost called him, hand on the phone, number halfway dialed, to say, I saw it, Marlon, you and Clark, the screenshots, the exit plan, to ask, was I really that disposable to you? But wisdom pulled my hand back. You don't argue with dust, baby. Once it's shifted off your soul, let it float away. That weekend, I heard from Mrs. Coleman, whose son Marlon mentored at the bank. He came in practically yelling at the front desk, she said, talking about people turning on him, said folks were believing lies. The thing about lies, they got short legs. Truth catches up, even if S.
And then, on a Tuesday evening when the crickets outside were the loudest thing in my world, he called. I let it go to voicemail. His voice, quiet, not cold, not calculated, but not honest either. Yaya, you don't have to forgive me, but we could have handled this better, together. All I wanted was security. I just wanted to feel some control. Control, that was the word. He wasn't sorry, not really. He was just grieving the control he lost. I didn't hate him. I couldn't, because hatred keeps you locked in a room with somebody you've already left. I hung wind chimes on the porch that week, burned juniper in the kitchen, reorganized every drawer in the house, not because it was messy, but because I needed the energy to feel mine again. And slowly, the weight that had been pressing my chest down every night, it lifted. I could breathe again. The second mediation happened 2 weeks after the messages fell into my lap. The room felt different this time, tighter, heavier, and somehow quieter. Marlon came in looking smaller. His tie wasn't straight, jaw clenched tight like he hadn't slept right in days. His new suit, the deep charcoal one he used to wear on big promotion days, looked ill-fitting now, like it didn't belong to him anymore. His lawyer was present, but the fire? Gone. The man barely raised his voice this round. My attorney, Donisha Clark, stayed calm the whole time. That woman don't blink unless it's for purpose. We're prepared to review the final settlement terms today, she said, sliding a modest printout across the table. Nothing unreasonable. Just closure, we offered. Zero claim to his retirement. Nothing from his personal savings, assuming he even had any left after this foolish trail. He would retain his car. I would retain both Kofi and my share of the house from the original trust. Each party walked clean, no spousal support either way. Simple, quiet, done. His lawyer blinked in disbelief. Marlon just stared at the paper. "So that's it?" he asked finally. Donisha moved her pen slowly across the line. "You wanted peace. This is peace." That's when it shifted. Marlon pushed back his chair and said, "She set me up. None of y'all see that?" His voice cracked around the edges. Sweat gathered at his collar. "This wasn't divorce. This was strategy. She made me out to be—" "You made yourself out to be, Mr. Bradley," Donisha said flatly, didn't even raise her tone. "We offered you a seat at the table. You tried to bring a wrecking ball instead." He looked directly at me, searching for softness, maybe even regret. "You weren't supposed to do this to me, Yaya." All I said was, "And yet I did." That man signed the papers like they burned, as if each line pulled him closer to the truth he had tried so long to avoid. He did this, not all at once, but in whispers, in secrets, in plans whispered with men who didn't love or lift him. He gave up a woman who would have weathered any storm with him, because he thought she wouldn't weather one without him. After mediation, the real story started rising like hot steam in the summer. People saw him different at work, his attitude sharper, his shoulders hunched. Someone told me he skipped a meeting and cursed out a coworker who said something too close to home. I didn't smile at that. Truth is, I prayed for Marlon that night, not because I wanted him back, but because I remembered what it felt like to sit in a house where pain ran under the floorboards, and nobody was listening. One Wednesday, Malik Ellis showed up on my porch, an old friend of Marlon's, cynic type, one of those men who never knew how to give a compliment without lacing it in sarcasm. "I just want to say," he began, hat in hand like it killed him to be genuine. "Nobody knew what he was doing. We all thought he had it figured out. Turns out, he played himself." I just nodded. "Sometimes deceit don't come loud," I said. "Sometimes it just learns how to behave well in public." He nodded once, then left. "You spend so much time in pain, you start calling it peace. I spent a long while thinking maybe I should have seen faster. Left earlier, called Zariah 6 months before I did. But healing taught me this. Shame is the echo of someone else's wounds trying to stick to your spirit, and you don't have to carry it anymore." I began forgiving myself, not him, myself, for sleeping beside lies, for questioning my spirit when it whispered low and early, for ever doubting I deserved better. With the papers finalized, I woke up the next morning and opened every window, let light in, let air move. I replaced pillows, took those navy sheets off the bed, the ones he picked, bought new ones in marigold and almond, brought plants in, let jazz play again. Ms. Donisha stopped by just to hand me the final recorded deed. House was legally mine. "You don't owe nobody nothing now," she said with a grin. I thanked her, hugged her longer than I planned. The next Friday, I lit a white candle in the kitchen. Sage burned in the corner, seeped all up through the walls. I wasn't celebrating revenge. I wasn't dancing on anyone's ruins. I was breathing, uninterrupted, unafraid. Kofi dozed in the doorway near the fridge, tail thumping every so often. I poured myself a glass of water, sat on the porch, and for the first time in what felt like years, I didn't feel like a passenger in my own life. Life got very still afterward. Not empty, just still. I remember waking up one Saturday morning, weeks after the final mediation, and realizing I wasn't holding my breath anymore. I didn't reach across the bed expecting coldness. I didn't check my phone for just-in-case messages. I didn't flinch when the mail came. I just got up, made some tea, fed Kofi, and stood barefoot in my own kitchen without fear. That's the thing they never tell you about peace. It don't always arrive in a roar. Sometimes it's just the absence of needing to explain yourself. I started falling back in love with my morning walks. Just me, Kofi, and the breeze humming along the sidewalks near Freedom Park. I listened to old Donny Hathaway records, started journaling again, filling pages with truth instead of strategies. I even planted herbs in the windowsill. Basil, lavender, a bit of mint. My mama used to say, "Keep something alive in the house with you so the loneliness doesn't turn into a tenant." And I did that, and somehow it worked. The hardest thing? Letting go of the fantasy that justice always looks like regret. I used to imagine Marlon breaking down, calling me crying from the parking lot of some therapist's office, saying he'd messed up everything, begging for another shot. But the truth? Sometimes closure don't come wrapped in their apology. It comes when you stop needing it altogether. And that felt like rebirth. I wrote a letter one day, didn't send it, didn't even seal the envelope, but it helped me breathe. It said, "Dear Ayanna, you weren't foolish. You were faithful. You didn't fail. You trusted. And you do not owe anyone shame for loving with your whole chest. You walked through it. You outlasted it. You kept your soul soft and your mind sharp. Don't dim now. God saw you, and He stayed. Love, me." I folded that letter and put it inside my old Bible between the Psalms and Proverbs. Every now and then, I still reopen it, just to remind myself of the woman I chose to become. I didn't move away. I didn't change my number. I didn't need to. My life now? Sweet, simple, untangled. I took on more freelance work when I felt ready, rejoined Genesis Book Club, and found myself laughing around women I once thought I'd lost touch with. I finally fixed the back fence, painted it myself too, soft plum like royalty after rain. Malik from next door brought over peach cobbler as a neighborly gesture last month, which made me blush more than I care to admit. But for now, I'm good where I am. Not lonely, just whole. I hope if someone ever tells this story, they don't say I got revenge. I ain't interested in that word. Revenge sounds like rage, and I walked out of that fire without smoke in my lungs. What I did was reclaim what was mine, my time, my voice, my home, my peace. That's not revenge. That's restoration. If you're listening to this and something in your bones feels familiar, I see you. If your spirit whispers something ain't right, listen. If the one you love turns cold and careful, pay attention. Don't wait until they hand you papers to start protecting who you are. You are worth more than their strategy, more than their manipulation, more than their exit plan. You are not built to break quietly, and you don't need anyone's permission to pick yourself up, pack your soul, and walk into peace. My name is Ayanna Freeman Bradley. I got left without hands ever truly touching me, but I left on my own terms, with grace in one pocket and freedom in the other, and I'm still here, whole, breathing, and unshaken. If this story found a place in your heart, I want to thank you for listening, and I want to ask you something gentle. Have you ever had to protect your peace quietly? Share with me in the comments if you're comfortable. And if this helped you exhale even a little bit, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe so we can keep holding space for stories that matter. Some betrayals don't scream, they tiptoe. They smile from across the dinner table. But when you feel the shift, trust it. You deserve to live in the sunlight of your own truth. And some wars are not won by fighting back. Some wars are won in silence.